water, mainly on this issue, and this is something we'll discuss today. And I I'll just appreciate the presenters, the participants, as well as the organizers, all of them, to be on board and discuss, agreed to discuss on this special issue. Thank you.
Okay, I thought you're gonna. Okay, I will do it then. Well, also from my side, as a co-organizer with Aniruda, a very warm welcome to all of you. We have a big program with a lot of presenters today, so let's not waste too much time. Let's just start. And I would want to give the word to Maude Barlow, who would welcome all of you also from the side of the Blue community. Maude Barlow, I think I will not have to introduce her. She's a co-founder and honorary chairperson of the Council of Canadians, one of Canada's leading independent advocacy groups. In this function, she started the Blue community movement with the first Blue communities in Canada. Maude Barlow is an outspoken advocate and author on issues including democratic and social rights, trade sovereignty, and environmental justice. She has served as a senior advisor on water to the United Nations. She also serves on the World Future Council and on the board of Food and Water Watch. And just a few days ago, her new book came out, Earth for Sale: The Fight to Stop the Last Plunder of the Planet. Maude, the floor, the microphone, the camera, it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Roland, and thank you, Aniruda. I am absolutely delighted to be here. This is a very important and, might I say, historic gathering. So a big shout out, Roland, to you and all of you who've organized this. It's these are difficult days, and I keep saying to people, coming together like this and doing good things, which we are doing, is the antidote to the violence and the injustice that we know is everywhere or so many places in the world. So this is a really important gathering. So welcome everyone. Very briefly, some of you will know this, the history of Blue communities. Well, way back, about 15, 16 years ago in Canada, we had a very right-wing government, and they were trying to force municipalities to accept privatization of water services if they wanted federal funding for new infrastructure. And a lot of the pipes were really old, and most of the towns and cities were going through growth and rebuilding, and they needed this money. And the federal government said, you're only going to get it if you privatize, you'd bring in a private company, because that's their ideology. So we came together and had a huge conference in Ottawa, and we are the capital, and we decided not just to be negative, against this, which we were, but to put a positive vision out. And the positive vision was called Blue Communities. And we went to all of the cities, towns and cities across the country. We had many activist groups, chapters in our organization in different communities. And they went to their town councilors and said, look, don't allow this to happen. Rather, instead, become a Blue community. And the Blue community pledge was to protect water as a human right, not to allow it to be privatized, but to protect it as a public service. And then lastly, because we were fighting plastics, of course, where clean, safe water, public water was available, the municipality should not be supplying bottled water on municipal premises or events. And suddenly, within a couple of years, we had almost 4 dozen towns and cities that took the pledge. They knew that privatization was a problem, and they turned money down from the government, federal government, to hold on to their public service. When the next government came in, a liberal government, they canceled that. So I kind of thought, well, that's that. But no, that wasn't that. I had happened to go to Switzerland, to Bern, Switzerland, and met the then mayor of Bern, who said, well, can a city outside of Canada become a Blue community? And that was that. It started this wonderful expansion of this, which Roland and others were terribly involved in right from the beginning. The city of Bern, the Reformed Church, the University of Bern all became blue communities right away. That was 2012, I think. And then it just took off. It took off in Switzerland, which is why I think Switzerland's still a center for leadership on this. But it moved to many other cities in Europe, Paris and Berlin and Brussels and Thessaloniki, and it was very exciting. And then it started again with the support of Roland and others to move to universities, to faith-based groups. You're going to hear from the World Council of Churches, which was one very exciting development, to schools. We now in Canada have a Blue Schools project, to unions and so on. So it's been a most important gathering place for those of us who want to protect water and protect the human right to water. And now, excitingly, we are seeing the movement grow in Asia, Africa, and South America. And so we're beginning to see this expansion. So that's very briefly. And of course, as new blue communities come in, they add to those pledges, you know, such as the Europeans all said, we want to promote public partnerships in our relationship with the global south, not public-private partnerships, for instance. Others have brought in fracking, anti-fracking or whatever. So that's the brief history. And we've had some big wins. I mean, that's a big win to have blue communities. I think there are over 25 million people who live in official blue community cities, towns and cities now around the world. And that doesn't include all the faith-based groups and the unions and the universities and so on. So that's been very exciting. And we won very important resolutions at the United Nations. In 2010, we won the right to regard water as a human right, water and sanitation as fundamental human rights. Until then, it was just a need that could be serviced by charity or the private sector, of course. And more recently, the United Nations General Assembly acknowledged the right to the right to a healthy environment. But as you know, it doesn't stop there. We still have a global water crisis. First of all, we have a global access. We are a planet running out of clean water, accessible clean water. We all learned that wasn't possible when we were children, but it's very true. The UN says that we're quickly in a situation where demand is outstripping supply. They say within a few years, demand will outstrip supply by 40%. And so we are looking at many people potentially dying because they don't have access. And of course, we're seeing a world in which we're going to see the first trillionaires walk amongst us this year. Probably starting with Elon Musk, if he isn't already. And we are moving into a direction where these people have no law. They are above any law, federal, national, international, the law of the earth, the law of religion, none of it. They're a law unto themselves. And they don't want rules. They don't want rules when they come in and they build their AI centers. And we need to build an international movement against these AI centers. They are the biggest threat to water that has come along in so long. Thank goodness there are a special rapporteur on clean water and sanitation. Pedro Arroyo has said very clearly, we call for a moratorium. I mean, this is very important. The Pope has said, this is a dangerous development. And we are seeing AI centers come into places where there is no water. If the people are hurting now, they're going to hurt more. So this is one of the connections we have to make. So as Roland says, I've just written a new book about what I consider to be the latest threat to not only water, but nature, biodiversity, species, the oceans. And it's called The Financialization of Nature. My book is called Earth for Sale, The Fight to Stop the Last Plunder of the Planet. And I describe what the financialization of nature is about. It's the same as the financialization of the economy, where making goods and services doesn't mean anything anymore, right? It's all about chasing money and going into debt to make more money and risk-taking for money. Same with housing. It's not about building housing for people. It's about housing speculation. Same for food. Well, it's the exact same thing with nature. So the financialization of nature and water means You take nature and its ecosystems and what they call ecosystem services, which already is terrible language because it sounds like nature exists to serve us, and ecosystem services, and you convert them right into tradable financial assets. You put a price on nature. They call it natural accounting. I call it measuring creation. You bring that into the market so that governments no longer have control over it. They abdicate their responsibility. It's a form of contracting out, and asset managers, corporations, and big equity funds come in and say, hey, we'll take over. But nature has to compete. And of course, by the way, we need to make money on this, or why would we be doing it? So they are making tons of money in many ways. And I won't go into it here because we don't have time, and there are other speakers that I want to hear. But I would have to say in closing, there has never been a more important time for us to come together as people who deeply care, building this blue community movement. We need to start thinking blue. I had this woman come up to me once after I gave a talk, and she said, can a person become a blue community? And I said, I guess so. She said, well, I'm going to stop drinking bottled water. Now, I know that's not possible everywhere. This was in Canada where there was clean water. She said, and I'm going to find out what my municipality is talking about, and are they, I hope that I'm going to ask my councillor. I wouldn't vote for you if you would vote for privatization, and I'm going to learn more. I want to learn more about what it's like in other places because we've taken our water for granted here. So she said, so I'm a blue community, and I thought it's that internalization of caring, of understanding that we need to protect water. We need to protect it as a public service, as a human right, and as something that must be held in democratic control. The more we give it over to corporations, the less control we have over the use of what's left of it. And I tell you, there are those who don't care. They'll always be able to buy their way out of the crisis the rest of us are going to face. So building this movement is incredibly important. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maude. And we are looking forward to have your book in hands, and we hope for translations in hundreds of languages all around the globe. Thank you very much for being with us and for your short introduction. Aniruddha, will you take over to introduce our first panelist? Looks like not. Okay, well, then let me just do it, and I hope at least the panelist is here. We have several panelists for 15 minutes presentations. The first one to start would be Sheikh Tawhidul Islam. He will talk about the history, epistemic crisis, and the path to water security in a warming world. Sheikh Tawhidul Islam is a professor at the Regional Center for Space Science and Technology Education in Asia and the Pacific, and he's on International Innovation Institute in Beiyang University in China. He's a senior research fellow, disaster management and climate change analytics in Asia and the Pacifics, United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment and Health. And he is the chairperson and co-convener of the Climate Action Research Network Asia Pacific, the network that the Blue community recently linked up to and combined forces. He sent me, because he said he has a problem with his internet access, he sent me his presentation as a video file. And if things will work as they should, I will try to share that and play that now. Okay, let me see if that works. Something is coming up, I guess. Here it is. Let's try it. All right, we see something, but we don't hear anything, don't we?
Yeah, we can't hear.
Shagardul, are you here?
No, we can't.
You can't hear it. Can you present Can you do the presentation yourself?
I have got the presentation. I can show you.
You want to try? Okay, let me then stop sharing here. And the screen is yours, Aniruddha.
Okay, let me try. So what is the share option? Yeah, share option, and from there.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all who are joining to this webinar from different parts of the world.
The
Today's
screen was
webinar covers
visible
Environment
little while
Day
ago.
since its establishment by the United Nations General Assembly. During the last 52 years,
Sorry, Anirudh, they no
Okay, okay,
screen.
okay.
focus on important
You haven't
environment.
shared.
The theme of this year's World Environment Day asks for urgent climate action, and we are observing this important day by paying attention on the water issues. Water is one of the most important issues that is being
I guess
impacted
there is some challenge in coordination. Earlier we were able
and
to
it has been
see, we were
reported by
not
the
able to
scientists
hear.
and
Now
global
we are able to
institutes
hear,
to
we
draw
are
attention of the
unable to
governments
see.
to take actions for
Yeah,
addressing
it has appeared.
the recent report entitled
I put the
Global
pictures. If you put the sound, then we have both together.
National University Institute for Water, Environment and Health that we are already living in a water bankrupt condition, which is beyond the fix by our hydrological means. It also indicated that we are living in the post-crisis era without resolving the crisis. The report mentioned that water insecurity is a systemic global risk. Addressing water crisis depends on understanding the problems in the first place. Today in my presentation, I'll present how complicated the water problems are by presenting a case study on Bengal Delta, where I used historical analysis, satellite data, and my personal experience as a Delta dweller. I'll talk about the rivers, as rivers are the vital water supply sources to meet various needs. I will show how river morphological conditions have been changed due to human-induced actions, especially during the colonial and post-colonial periods over the decades. Using satellite data, I will show how over-extraction of water from groundwater tables has made the whole water scenario complicated and irreversible. In most of the cases, we don't take these historical impact legacies in understanding the current conditions, and also we lack necessary data at appropriate scale to fathom the crisis. Based on these facts, I have titled this presentation as History, Epistemic Crisis and Path to Water Security in a Warming World. At the outset, I would like to present some basic facts on the water issues of the world. The total length of rivers of the world is about 25 million kilometers with annual water flow 110,000 kilometer cube per year. And 63% of long rivers are not free flowing now. These rivers have been degraded due to natural sediment deposition, log jams, water mills, low head infrastructure, hard river engineering interventions like dam construction and river fragmentation, local microclimatic conditions, recharging local aquifers, supply of protein-based foods by different means are some of the functions that small rivers perform for the local communities. But we do not have adequate data on these small rivers. We have river databases like HydroSheds, Hydro 1K. These provide information for large size watershed areas. Water is a dynamic environmental element and its movement depends on water mass, energy, and land morphological attributes like relief and elevation, downward slope, soil condition that determines the sediment supply. We need to understand all these as an integrated systemic process. This slide on the Bengal Basin shows that the water aspects of Bengal Delta as an integrated system, where the Himalayas and surrounding highlands supply water and sediment through the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers. It also shows that the delta formation occurred in phases over thousands of years. The first delta fan was developed about 7.5 thousand years back. The mighty Himalayan mountain range, that is about 7 kilometers high on an average, supply water from a vast 2 million square kilometers of watershed regions and forced to pass through this water mass through Bangladesh that is only 144,000 square kilometers in size. Understanding today's delta changes such as flooding, erosion, land subsidence requires studying these entire connected systems, not fragmented parts. But we are not doing that. This slide presents the major disasters that have affected the rivers of Bengal Delta over the last 400 years, alongside the various physical interventions that have been introduced into the river system during this period. This slide highlights the water sector master plan proposed in 1964 by a United States consulting firm named IEC. The plan advocated the construction of embankments along rivers to protect floodplains from seasonal flooding. However, this approach failed to recognize that seasonal inundation and sediment deposition are integral components of a healthy delta ecosystem. The Bengal Delta receives approximately 1 trillion cubic meters of water and 1.5 billion tons of sediment annually. This continuous influx of water and sediment plays a critical role in sustaining delta formation, maintaining land elevation, replenishing floodplains, and supporting the long-term resilience of the delta system. By preventing floodwaters from reaching the floodplains, the embankment strategy disrupted one of the delta's fundamental natural processes. In effect, it undermined the very mechanisms through which the delta sustains itself. This slide shows the dry season riverbed of the Ganges River, illustrating the enormous sediment load carried by the river. Yet the master plan provided no effective strategy for managing these sediments or preventing river channels from gradually becoming clogged and shallower over time. Under natural conditions, sediments are distributed across extensive floodplain areas during seasonal floods, when rivers overtop their banks. This process allows riverbeds to remain sufficiently deep to convey water, while simultaneously raising the elevation of floodplains, thereby creating and maintaining land suitable for human habitation and agricultural production. I recently conducted mathematical surveys in 3 coastal rivers of Bangladesh and found that 2 of them had accumulated substantial volumes of sediment within their riverbeds. This slide illustrates how these rivers have undergone significant and in many cases nearly irreversible morphological changes. As a result, their carrying capacity has been greatly reduced, and in some locations riverbeds have risen to elevations comparable to adjacent floodplains, severely restricting water flow. Consequently, the continuous removal of sediment through dredging, which is very expensive, has become a common practice in efforts to keep Bangladesh rivers navigable and hydraulically functional. This slide presents an interesting example of community-led adaptation. In the southwestern region of Bangladesh, local communities suffering from prolonged waterlogging caused by structural flood protection measures deliberately breached embankments to allow sediment-laden floodwaters to re-enter the floodplain. According to the study presented here, approximately 50 centimeters of land elevation were gained through natural sediment deposition under embankment-free conditions. As a result, large waterlogged areas were reclaimed and restored by local communities. This example demonstrates the importance of working with natural deltaic processes rather than attempting to control or suppress them. This slide compares historical and contemporary river conditions. Historical maps show that the headwaters of 5 southwestern coastal rivers were directly connected to upstream river systems and received regular flows of water and sediment. In contrast, satellite imagery from 2024 reveals that many of these rivers have become disconnected from their parent channels due to extensive morphological changes within the deltaic landscape. These findings highlight the profound transformations that have occurred in the Bengal Delta over time and underscore the importance of understanding rivers as dynamic components of a larger socio-ecological system. The next set of slides presents evidence of groundwater depletion across the Bengal Delta region. To examine the status and long-term dynamics of groundwater resources, I used data from GREAT and rainfall satellite missions covering the period from 2002 to 2005. These maps illustrate seasonal variations in groundwater storage during both summer and winter. These findings indicate that groundwater depletion has accelerated significantly in recent years. The average annual depletion rate during 2018 to 2025 was approximately 44.4% higher than the observed during 2002 to 2017. Considering together the changes in the river morphology, alterations in surface water availability, and accelerating groundwater depletion reveal a profound system-level transformation of Bengal Delta. Historically, the Bengal Delta was often categorized into distinct geomorphological zones, like mature, moribund, and young delta regions. Today, however, these distinctions are becoming increasingly blurred as systemic environmental changes reshape the delta as a whole. Morphological, fluvial, and hydrological processes that once operated across different temporal scales, ranging from annual and decadal cycles to century and millennial timescales, are no longer functioning in the ways they historically did. As a consequence, the Bengal Delta is gradually losing many of its natural deltaic characteristics. The implications are profound. Environmental degradation at the system level is increasingly translating into social challenges, including food insecurity, water scarcity, public health concerns, and livelihood vulnerabilities for millions of people living across the delta. This slide illustrates how a systems thinking perspective helps us understand these local sufferings as outcomes of broader systemic disruptions rather than isolated environmental events. The next slide summarizes these findings through what I call the Bengal Delta paradox, a situation in which significant investments and interventions often fail to enhance either water security or community resilience. Drawing upon both scientific evidence and my own reflexive experience as a delta dweller, I propose a conceptual pathway toward water security in the Bengal Delta regions under conditions of climate change and environmental uncertainty. I call this framework delta centrism. Delta centrism places the delta itself at the center of analysis, governance, and adaptation. Rather than treating the delta as merely a physical setting for human activities, it views the delta as a dynamic and evolving socio-ecological system whose integrity must be maintained if long-term resilience is to be achieved. It advocates a data-driven understanding of deltaic processes and emphasizes the importance of diagnosing problems through robust evidence while uncovering the underlying mechanisms that generate those problems. Such an approach can support more effective intersectoral coordination and the development of adaptive pathways for sustainable water governance. This slide presents an example involving abundant or dead river channels. From a delta-centric perspective, these areas should be assessed according to their geomorphological, hydrological, and ecological characteristics before interventions are undertaken. Any intervention that ignores the natural integrity of the local system risks creating additional environmental and social problems. For example, excavating these paleo channels may not necessarily restore active river flow. However, such areas could still provide substantial benefits to the local communities if they are transformed into wetlands or lakes or multifunctional water retention systems. Because these abundant channels are located in the lowest elevations in the landscape, groundwater resources frequently remain available within them, creating opportunities for alternative forms of ecological restoration and productive use. Throughout the presentation, I have argued that our understanding of water systems, rivers, and related environmental processes remains incomplete. This concern is also reflected in recent publications in Nature, which highlight the persistent underassessment of environmental risks in developing countries such as Bangladesh. Another recent Nature study suggests that some of climate-related impacts, including sea level rise, may be significantly more severe than previously understood. Furthermore, large-scale climate oscillations and daily connections, including ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, Mediterranean Oscillation, Arctic Oscillation, the Indian Ocean Dipole, the Indian Ocean Whirlpool are likely to introduce additional uncertainties and amplify future impacts across the region. Taken together, these findings suggest that future water challenges may become even more severe unless decisive action is taken. At the global level, we need to embrace an Earth stewardship approach, one that shifts society away from exclusive pursuit of material growth toward the sustainable management of built, natural, human, and social capital. At the local level, citizen science initiatives can play important roles. Walking along the rivers, and documenting water flow challenges can generate valuable information for understanding river conditions and identifying opportunities for restoration. Such efforts can contribute not only to restoring ecological functions, but also to reconstructing historical narratives of river and water landscapes, much of which remains fragmented, undocumented, or overlooked. Finally, I would like to emphasize that scientists are fulfilling their responsibility by documenting change in water vis-a-vis environmental conditions, developing projections, and constructing future scenarios. What is now needed is a strong political commitment and collective action. Recognizing water security as a global priority is no longer optional. It is essential. Thank you.
I would like to add one thing, that is Professor Sheikh Tawhidul Islam. He was actually participating, joining from China, and from there, so they don't have Google facility, so they can join through VPN. So sometimes there will be some network issues, and because of that, he has actually uh, developed all these things and discussed. So version of his has been displayed, and now uh, it is up to Ronald that if he feels, we can ask Tawhid any question, anything, or we may ask something later, questions later.
Thank you, Aniruddha. I think it was for all of us rather difficult to follow the presentation, but he told me that he's just publishing an article on this issue, and we hope we can put the presentation and the article then online once it is public, and then maybe you can read there for better following. Let's then continue. I would like to introduce our next presenter, and that's Professor Lyla Mehta. She will talk on the topic Towards Brown Gold, Reimagining Off-Grid Sanitation in the Face of Climate Change. Lyla Mehta is the professor at the Institute of Development Studies in the UK, and she's a visiting professor at Noragrig, the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. Her research focuses on the politics of water and sanitation, climate change, gender scarcity, and rights-based approaches. She has an extensive field research experience in South Asia, as well as in Southern and Eastern Africa, which is Ethiopia, South Africa, Tanzania, and she serves as a Blue Community Ambassador. Lyla, the floor is yours, microphone, the screen, here you go.
Everything fine? You can see my screen?
Perfect. Everything is perfect.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Roland, for organizing this. And thank you to all the members of the Blue community and others for organizing this and for inviting me. And happy World Environment Day. As we've heard from Maude, we are living in extraordinary times. And already we heard from Professor Islam about the challenges around rivers, etc. I've done a lot of work on the right to water, water scarcity, but I'm going to focus very much on a more invisible issue today, which is sanitation and wastewater. And in a way, it draws on research, which is the Towards Brown Gold project. And here are all the people who participated. And I'm going to demonstrate why we really have to take this seriously, because it is a ticking bomb in Asia and beyond. And if any of you know, when you look at the monsoon in many parts of Asia and the global south, you have drains getting choked, you have open drains, toilets are everywhere, but where does the shit go? So I think that's what I'm going to focus on. But before that, let's just remind ourselves of some of the global inequalities, and it's worth reminding ourselves about that all the time. The fact that, 50, 60 years of global action has really, really badly failed. We have all these billions of people lacking access to safely managed drinking water, and also even more without safely managed sanitation. And as Maude said, the right to water was very late to the party in a way. It was 2010 with the General Assembly. And about 7 years earlier, there was a general comment, unlike the right to food, which has been around for decades and decades. So it's really been quite a struggle to recognize this right. And we have a lot of people living in unsanitary conditions. And in a situation of war, ecocide, and genocide, you know, these human rights violations are compounded, and you even have more waste and environmental flows going out due to war and crisis. And what I'm going to focus on today is very much about our water bodies, rivers, and ecosystems really choking. And we're talking about 56% of domestic wastewater remains untreated. And 60% of our global water bodies have low quality. So what are we doing really about this massive, massive challenge? When we're talking about 60% of our global water bodies having shit in them, basically, and other waste. So I'm focusing very much on the off-grid urban challenge. Our world is urbanizing. Half the population is urban. And most of these are rapidly urbanizing contexts, so small towns, cities, and they're not connected to any grid. There's a limit to capital-intensive, centralized conventional sanitation systems. It's not like the Victorian section, where everything was connected. We're talking about places that are disconnected and will stay so for the foreseeable future. There's been a lot of campaigns around the world to have these open defecation-free environments and to build toilets all around. So in South Asia, in different parts of Africa, in India, you have the flagship Clean India Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, and before that, you had other ones, Total Sanitation Campaign. But they tend to neglect these issues of sustainability and equity, and that's sort of what I'm going to focus on. So we've had 48 years or maybe 50 years of global drives, campaigns, decades, and, very much top-down campaigns. So let's roll out the toilets, let's put the hand pumps, let's build it all out, etc. But in a way, they focus on the hardware. These campaigns focus on the visible aspects, so the pumps, the toilets, but they don't look at the invisible aspects. What really happens to the waste? What happens to being off-grid? And I think that's where we really have to focus. Because many of these toilets and even these hand pumps, many of them, there's an issue of water quality there, and they lack proper sewage systems, and many of them are not connected to septic tanks. So indeed, toilet coverage has increased all over the world. And in India went from 600 million open defecators to open defecation free by 2019. In Nepal also, it was quite dramatic. So you can ask in a way, fine, there are lots of toilets. Many of these toilets are missing toilets, so there's still a lot of open defecation. But still, when there are toilets, where does the waste go? Where does the shit go? And what is really happening? And who is affected by it? And I would argue that it's largely poor residents, migrants, low caste, landless slum dwellers, scavengers. These are still very, very much denied their basic rights to water and sanitation. So what we sought to do in this project was to make the invisible visible, because we're talking about the invisibility of wastewater flows and groundwater. And these are largely marginalized households with unsafe sanitation that face this huge levels of water contamination. Now, sorry. Yeah, if you could all go on mute, please. So, everybody wants a flush and forget kind of system, and I understand that. But the question is it realistic? Can we have these kind of flush systems like you have in the bacteriological model, which was the public revolution since the Great Stink in London in the last century? And while fecal sludge management is very critical to safely manage sanitation, it involves the whole sanitation chain. And what you find is that households in informal settlements often struggle to access. Sorry, could you go on mute, please? I think it's Kasturi. Roland, can you put on mute? So we're talking about a lot of exposure to. Can you put on mute or eject, or maybe eject her? I don't know. Okay, so what we sought to do in this project then, in a way, the waste. So when we're talking about wastewater and fecal sludge, while it is really a threat, there is also some kind of opportunity there, because wastewater is, in a way, and fecal sludge management, when reused properly, has a lot of nutrients. And so there's a way for resource recovery. And this is the question we asked in this project. So we called it brown gold, which is the safe reuse of shit or wastewater that unlocks its potential as a resource. And I remember we were sitting in Lusaka, and you see that picture there where they had these bags of compost that they'd made, and even you can have these plants there which are used from recycled products. But then you obviously need to have a market or users and a chain, a value chain, and often that is not there. So we were interested to see, is it possible to actually find ways to turn shit into brown gold? But we found it was very, very challenging because in a way there was a lot of sanitation crisis and access issues. So we were looking at how do people live with off-grid sanitation, what were the socio-technical and institutional processes, and also the policy and regulatory frameworks. And what I'm presenting is thanks to a whole team. I showed you the logos, and here are the colleagues who've been working on it. So I'm focusing very much on the Asia bit, not the Africa bit. And we focused on small towns. We focused on one in India, Nanded, which had a citywide community-led total sanitation program. This city was declared ODF++, Open Defecation Free++, but in reality, only 45% of the shit is safely managed. And 50% still live in informal settlements. There's a lot of wastewater leaking into where people live, as you see in this picture, and a whole lot of problems with labor, waste, gender, caste, and discrimination, and severe health risks. Another site was a coastal town, and since we're interested in climate change, coastal towns are very, very vulnerable to climate change, and there's a lot of issues, and it's very important to link that with the sanitation crisis. So this is a major tourist destination. It is the state of Kerala in India, which is completely open defecation free, so toilets everywhere, but a lot of problems with actually containing the waste and a high groundwater table, which is often contaminated. And fecal waste often mixes with water bodies during rains, increasing the spread of waterborne diseases. So there's lots of risks between flood, sanitation, and health risks. And here too, you have a history of sanitation work, so-called illegality, informality, and social exclusion. And in reality, even the formal systems depend on manual workers to clean a lot of these systems. We also focused in Nepal, and this was the first ODF municipality in Nepal, Gularia, but it's still far away from safely managed sanitation. And there's a variable quality of toilets and containment. It had a fecal sludge plant, which was not operational, and most people were emptying their own pits, and there was limited protection for sanitation workers. And in a way, the use of biogas and the safe containment was very much linked to access to animals, land, and resources. And so my colleagues from Brighton University did these shit flow diagrams, and you can see in a way, despite the so-called treated water, it's still quite unsafe. In the dry season, it was unsafe by 44%, and in the wet season, 91%. So since we're interested in climate change, in a way, why is climate change very much linked to shit and wastewater? Firstly, because it's a slow onset of change, more intense and frequent hazards, increased variability, and also an increasing trends in rainfall and temperature. So we were very interested in looking at the climate impacts and looking at links between climate and vulnerability. So if you look here, in the coastal setting, there were issues like floods and storm surges, unplanned water development, high water table. And in Nepal, in the Terai, which was the plains, we had heat waves, floods, and high variability. And those led to reduced work efficiency, wash infrastructure damage. And in both these cases, you know, the vulnerable groups were workers, informal septic tank workers, Dalits. Those are the so-called, you know, the lowest caste within that very entrenched caste system. So if we look at in Nepal, a country highly vulnerable to climate change impacts, very diverse geoclimatic systems, flash floods, glacial outbursts, landslide erosions, droughts, heat waves, and disease outbreak. So even though it was declared open defecation free in 2019, climate change threatens to reverse a lot of the issues around waste. And 53% is vulnerable to flooding. And so a lot of the on-site sanitation issues also contribute to emission, and they're also not quite safe when extreme climate events happen. So as you see here in the studies that we were doing, water quality is affected by taste, temperature extremes, impact on taste, odor, color, and acceptability can also affect safety, for example, regrowth of microbes, especially nutrient-rich waters. And a lot of the households revert to drinking groundwater sources. And a lot of the stored water, treated or untreated, is characterized as unsafe. And this was done through surveys using WHO methodology. And in Alleppey in Kerala, which was a coastal system, canals become open sewage networks, not only stormwater, but also the waste and downstream areas become waste sinks. And so when there's flooding, you really have a problem with the septic tanks. And everywhere there is an issue of unpaid labor and also health risks for those who are actually working with the waste. So in a way, there's a lot of links between climate injustices and sanitation, especially in these urban contexts. Distributive inequalities are pervasive in the climate sanitation nexus. These are exacerbated by procedural and recognitional injustices because people's own knowledges, people's perceptions, people's understandings are often ignored. And it's really important to look at both the temporal and the spatial context, which is understanding which is very critical in looking at both short and long-term impacts. And so in a way, it's a kind of missing link, the link between sanitation and climate, both in terms of adaptation and mitigation. As I've highlighted, there are real clear adaptation issues because of these increasing hazards and shocks and the impact that they have on sanitation systems. But then there are also issues around mitigation. What kind of waste systems do we have? And are they contributing to climate change or not? And it's really important to focus on bottom-up understanding, centering community perspectives, and also amplifying citizen science and bringing evidence from different lenses, socio-ecological, technological, and, obviously taking the threat of climate change and uncertainty very seriously. So I was trying to conclude, but I don't know what happened to my final slide. Okay. Can you see? No.
No, but anyway, Lyla, that was a great presentation. Thank you so much. You're a wonderful Blue Community ambassador. You're at the conclusions now.
Yeah. Have I got time or not?
You do if you want. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be part of this Blue community and also to be an ambassador and also, to be part of events like this. I think I just want to conclude by saying that there's been this global drive to focus very much on toilet construction. But what does actually safely managed sanitation mean? Or the human right to sanitation would also include environmental health, ecosystem integrity, fecal sludge management, and actually safely containing the waste. And we tried to move towards these innovations, but we found it quite challenging because of very limited sanitation access. So we do actually have to look at the physical, sociocultural, economic, environmental, and technical processes along the sanitation chain. And it's very important to focus on wider issues of sustainability as well as social justice, and also link that very much to marginality and precarity. We found we really need to coordinate across municipal, provincial, and national governments. It's not enough to leave things to the community. You can't leave the community to deal with their shit and waste. It really needs very solid state efforts, especially in these informal settlements. And while there's a lot on the circular economy and the potential of it, it tends to gloss over some of these socio-political, cultural, and other challenges, governance challenges. And finally, I think I've tried to highlight the importance of taking sanitation and waste seriously in a changing climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lyla. That was excellent, brilliant. Thank you very much for your presentation. I hope we will also get the presentation. I can put it online afterwards, and we hope you will be present in any next conference meeting, whatever we do. Thank you. Aniruddha, may I ask you to take over for presenting the next panelists? Aniruddha? No? Okay, then I guess I will have to do it again. The next panelist would be el señor Gonzalo Peña Zamalloa. He would talk about water, landscape, and cultural preservation, Páramo and Puna ecosystems in the Andes, South America. He's a university teacher in Peru, but I'm not sure he's with us. Are you?
Yes, good night. Oh,
Here you are.
everyone.
Welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just let me share my desktop. Okay. I think this is my screen. I think I'm just confirm me, please, if the screen is visible. maybe my will change to the phone. Just wait a second. Oh, now can you hear me? I changed the internet connection because the other was extremely slow. I think now it's okay. Can you hear me?
You would have to start sharing again.
Okay, yes, I will share again. I will turn off my camera because the connection is not really that stable here. I am also in China, like Professor Seki. So our connections are not always the most ideal. So let me please confirm me if presentation is visible. My screen is okay. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you, but we can't see the presentation. Maybe you just continue talking and do an oral presentation then.
Okay. Now can you
Now it's
Yeah.
coming. Yes, here it is.
Oh, okay. Um, okay. So my topic is water, landscape, and cultural preservation of El Páramo and Puna in the Andes. So maybe most of you haven't heard much about these places in South America. El Páramo and La Puna are two very unique Andes, while the Puna is located in the central Andes. So both regions are very particular. So for example, I will put these two videos represent how they look like. So, most of the Páramo and the Puna are composed of grasslands, and at the same time, they are places where we can find something that we call bofedales, that are one type of wetland. In El Páramo, especially, there is a very special configuration that let the levels of humidity be high enough for the grassland to develop methods to capture the water from the air. And in this way, water is stored in the ground due to the features of this kind of vegetation. And during other seasons of the year, the water emerges as a to sustain the vegetation. So most of the endemic biodiversity in this place is very fragile, but is very resistant to droughts, and is very resistant to extreme temperatures, and especially solar radiation. So it's a kind of very special ecosystems, and they only exist in the Andes. So what is referred to as maybe everyone has seen these ones, la vicuña, la llama, alpaca, and other animals are from these areas, and they most of them depend of this kind of grasslands. So all these areas, La Puna and El Páramo, are closely linked to what we know as the glaciers from South America. So, for example, what is a cultural landscape? This cultural landscape from here, it is known as Arica. So most of the areas in El Puna and El Páramo have a very high presence of glaciers, and we call them cultural landscape, and are recognized by the UNESCO as cultural landscapes because they provide two things: tangible elements that are how men through centuries have modeled the environment, and most of them include plants, terraces, and even we call this water farming and water capture and water storing in these terraces to serve as places for agriculture. And on the other hand, most of the people that live in these places still use these traditional methods to continue their way of living. So, for cultures in the Andean region, still today, this kind of use of water and this kind of ecosystems as the Puna and El Páramo are extremely linked to our history and even our beliefs. So, are very important. Um, uh, so, which cultural landscapes we can find in this area? The most representatives are these ones. In El Páramo, we have many that are located in Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador, and most of them have two important features that they are linked to agriculture, but they are also linked to the remnants of what was the Andean cultures. So the Andean cultures, through the Incas and through the older cultures, developed a kind of water system. So a hydraulic system was developed to provide water to many of these places. But at the same time, the places preserve the ways of living based on how they treat water and how they coexist with these ecosystems. In the Puna, we have two, that is the humid Puna and the dry Puna. And in these places, we can find, these places are located mainly in Peru and Bolivia. We also can find them in Chile and Argentina. So in the Puna, we can find more sophisticated uses of water because water is more scarce than in El Páramo. But also the systems are more fragile. What is the problem? That most of these places are also very rich in minerals. So mining companies are usually interested in this kind of places. So the water resources end up being highly depleted. And maybe another big problem that involves climate change and human activity is the depletion of glaciers in the region, because these places depend depend on glaciers to survive. We can even find this that is called the Capagnan. Capagnan is a road system that was kind of buildings a hydraulic system to provide connections across all the Andean region. So this kind of system has about 7 to 500 years that has been operative. When we talk about the Andean region and we talk about water and we talk about cultural places, we can find that people are struggling with these changes. So, for example, in places where pastures were green about all year, now is becoming very hard to maintain the same levels of pasture and agriculture that have kind of a balance. So specifically from from the world, 99% of the tropical glaciers are in this region, but 71% and specifically in Peru, and this becomes a very important issue. Especially for most of the Andean communities. Um, but this problem has become so widespread that even rivers in urban regions are being depleted. So, for example, this is the Mantaro River from 1988 to 2024, and the Mantaro River supplies water for three regions: Lima, Lima, Junín, and Huancavelica. So, three regions from Peru, and this river has been depleted very quickly. So the volume of water now is very low compared to other parts. And even the studies suggest that even in the most moderate and optimistic projections from climate, the glaciers that sustain part of these rivers and the lakes and the cultural landscapes in this area well, are going to reach their peak, and they are practically going to disappear by 2090. And the water scarcity is expected to hit a point of endangering the lifestyles of the communities just by 2050. So there is not too much time to take this into account. For example, this video was from 5 years ago. This community, this same community, is almost non-existent today. So these were maybe the last generations in still living in these areas. So now the town exists, but practices have become too difficult to continue. This is a very, very important and very worrisome image from 1980 to 2024. This was one of the glaciers that was part of the Huascaran system. Huascaran system is one of the most important glacier systems in Peru. That is all this part, almost all this part, is connected to this part. So it's the main system in this area. And this was one of the glaciers. So the glacier has practically disappeared, and it will continue to do so. As some studies suggest that even by and up to 2022, South America is becoming already warmer, and it is expected by 2050 to become even more warm. So we are talking about maybe passing the threshold of 2 degrees. So it's extremely worrisome. In other sense, it is important to note that most of the glaciers in this area have irregular behaviors. So the ones that encounters more investments from mining companies, and the ones that are close to attractive places for mining and for urbanization, well, are being quickly depleted, and the ones that become isolated suffer an acceleration of their deglaciation process. So it's not only that human activity is happening, climate is helping a lot in destroying these cultural landscapes and these glaciers across all this region. And some of the initiatives from the governments and the Andean community have been to provide these three, I would say maybe three pillars of development, but it hasn't been really successful. Many plans have been done, many plans have been applied. Some communities and some initiatives that are listed here have been kind of successful, but overall, the big picture looks very grim today. So, is this enough? Evidence suggests that maybe it is not. Uh, So I will finish with this phrase. This phrase is in Quechua, the main language from the traditional language from the Andes, that it means water and land. And for people who live in the Andes and know Quechua, that can be translated like no land exists with no water. So it's like water is the life of the land. This is a concept embedded in all these communities, but sadly, it may be no longer. This was my presentation. I hope I made my point. If you have some questions or things you would like to share.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much. Aniruddha, will you?
Yeah. Now, thank you very much, Professor. We are enlightened to know something more about this situation in Peru. Of course, we can discuss later. I would like more about the Titicaca Lake, which you have mentioned in one place only, but how it is actually contributing to all the Peruvian culture and other areas. Uh, in fact, water security issues are very important. So we'll
Yeah, of course.
talk to you later on this.
Okay, Professor. Thank you.
Aniruddha, will you introduce the next panelist? It's your guest also.
Next, I would like to introduce, just one moment, please. I have some problem. It is enhanced encryption is on.
Okay, well, the next guest, if you want me to take over, would be Professor Yonariza, who would talk about water issues in Indonesia under climate change, sectoral impacts. He's Professor Yonariza is from the Department of Agricultural Socioeconomic Faculty of Agriculture at the University Andalas. I hope I pronounced it rightly, in Padang, Indonesia. I see you are with us here. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Dr. Brunner. Good evening to you in South or North America. Good morning, good afternoon to you in Europe and Africa, and good evening to you in Asia. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Roland. Let me share my screen. As you mentioned, when I was chatted by Dr. Tawhidul, I just say yes to his invitation to present about Indonesian water resource issue and climate change and sectoral impact. Actually, my current work is mostly on forestry, but I used to work on water issues before, so I'm like happy to share with you what I learned recently about the water issues in Indonesia under climate change. Can you see my screen now?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You hear my voice clearly?
Yes, everything's
Okay,
great.
good.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Now I'll take time. I'm allocated 15 minutes. I try to use it properly. Okay, this is just outline of my presentation this evening. I will brief you about Indonesian overview and background information on water resources, and also water issues in Indonesia under climate change, and what are the key sectoral impacts as what Dr. Tauhid asked me to present and way forward. I thank you, the Blue community, to invite me to this webinar. Of course, I think I need to introduce to you Indonesian, even though you may know already. We are in the archipelagic country state. We have five main big island, yeah, Sumatra, Kalimantan, Java, Sulawesi, and Papua. And climate, we are in tropical area, tropical climate. So distinct dry and monsoon season. Yeah, we have only hot and wet. Yeah, hot and wet season. Two season. Of course, by having these two climate type, we Indonesia actually is highly stable for agricultural production. And the next slide I borrow from SOAS here about Indonesian land area and population. And what is a good point here that we have what so called demographic bonus, yeah, where the age of people average 29 or almost 30 years. So maybe also to be affected by the climate change. And this is a structure of age. Majority of population are in the productive age. Okay. About water in Indonesia, let me explain to you a bit. We have groundwater as the largest source of drinking water. I borrow this slide from Mulyanto, yeah, because he has presented this slide in a forum in Southeast Asia. And this good source of water is groundwater in for drinking and sanitation, yeah, in urban area also. And about drinking water, actually Indonesia people has good access to proper drinking water, even though only 30% of them using piping network, yeah. And about water resources and surface water, you can see that in some island they have a surplus of water, but in Java and Bali they have deficit in terms of higher demand as compared to water availability, yeah, in those islands. But Sumatra, Kalimantan, and also Maluku has a surplus of surface water. And groundwater availability also you can see in this big island, yeah, Sumatra, Papua, and uh, also Kalimantan. Yeah, we have excessive. We have surplus of groundwater also. And Indonesia, freshwater is used mostly for agriculture. Yeah, almost 90% is used to uh, irrigation. Yeah, and of course. There is also geographical imbalances between those island, and the water is unevenly distributed, and domestic sources where over 60% of domestic clean water use pipe network, as I mentioned earlier. Drinking water now people use packaged water and become primary source of water. And of course, also there is environmental challenges where rapid urbanization and groundwater over extraction in coastal city like Jakarta and Semarang in Java led to severe land subsidence, in seawater intrusion. And what is the water management is under climate change? Of course, the climate change in Indonesia is characterized by shifting rainfall. Yeah, we have now extreme weather. Yeah, extreme weather, and also rising seas, and those are driving the crisis of too much water in some months, and too little water in other time, and too polluted at other time. So these are the issue that having too much or too little water is threatening the agriculture, cities, and also energy. I will talk about it in more detail. Uh, as previously mentioned by speaker about hydrological landscape in Indonesia, we have shifting rainfall, dual hazard reality, and there is modeling gap now. As they said that we need to what is it? Use regional climate models, yeah, to predict the precipitation. this is what my point is. Key sectoral impact. I talk in three sector. One is about agriculture and food security. Because of unpredictable rainy season and prolonged dry spell disrupt as planting schedule, yeah, reduce the reservoir level, cut irrigation capacity, and threatening domestic rice production. This is issues in agriculture and food security. And many studies have shown that there is decrease in food production due to factor in the environmental, that is changing because of climate change. Yeah. Climate change has caused uncertainty in climate, so it will be difficult to predict the suitable planting season. And second one is urban water, as also mentioned earlier by Leila, Prof. Leila. In Indonesia, also this one issue about sanitation. And city like Jakarta and Surabaya face chronic water deficit. Yeah, so saltwater intrusion from over extraction and sea level rise contaminates aquifer. Yeah, flooding overwhelms sanitation system. A study was carried out in 4 cities in Indonesia, and respondents mentioned about they have draft problem in one occasion, and also heavy rainfall at other time. So this was study by UNICEF. And about energy, because Indonesia use water hydropower plant and reducing in water charge, also reduce power supply, and it affect some hydropower plant in some island. Yeah, or in some island they say it's found out that the micro hydropower plant might not reach the design capacity, yeah, because the uncertainty in the river flow. This is so. What is the best way forward? So I learned some literature and I found out that they propose adaptive management to integrate long-term water projection and basin strategies for food, flood, and drought. Also, the regional climate change modeling and deploying high-resolution tool to replace inadequate global circulation models, and also cross-sector resiliencies, coordinate agriculture, urban, and energy under a unified climate framework. So this is what we need to do. We need to do paradigm shift, yeah, where land use change and global warming together amplify the hydrological cycle, intensifying wet event while accelerating uh, dry spell severity. Yeah. So Indonesia cannot address this risk sector by sector. So also there is immediate priority to deploy coupled hydrological models, integrate long-term hydrological projection, and many people suggest nature-based solution like watershed management, integrated watershed management to protect watershed. Nature-based solution is the way to solve the Indonesian water crisis and under climate change. I will make it short, and then this is all I can share with you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm done. Roland.
I expected Yonariza to say thank you, but let me do that. Thank you very much for your presentation. I hope you can also send it to us so that we can put it online afterwards when we do the recording also. So looking forward to receive it.
Thank you.
Yonariza, you wanted to say something or we continue?
Yeah, I am really grateful to Professor for giving us some more highlights about this country, Indonesia, and I would love to. I think it is not me only. All the participants would love to know more about it in the near future. But today, at this juncture, I would like to thank to Professor.
Thank you
So,
also.
yeah.
Okay, thank you again. Then let's come to our last but sure not least panelist, to Dinesh Suna. He will talk about water, the missing link in climate, land, and food security. Dinesh Suna is a program executive for land, water, and food and the coordinator of the Ecumenical Water Network of the World Council of Churches, based in Geneva, Switzerland. He has worked with several ecumenical organizations in his home country in India since the 1990s. He's also a founding member of the People's Water Forum, and he represents the World Council of Churches at the WSF International Council at the World Social Forum. In his function for the World Council of Churches, he recently attended 3 high-level forums: the UN Water Conference preparatory meeting in Senegal, the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture in Berlin, both in January, and the ICAR Plus 20 in Colombia this February, where water has emerged as the critical yet often overlooked thread connecting climate resilience, land governance, and food security agendas. Drawing on the Living Planet Monitor publication of the World Council of Churches, his presentation bridges scientific evidence with moral and community-driven perspectives, underscoring that water justice is not merely a technical challenge, but a shared ethical responsibility for people and the planet. So that's the great presentation to end our 2 days conference. Dinesh, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roland, and everyone. My dear Maude, good to see you again. And especially I see, I'm originally from India, and I see a lot Indians here, and thanks to them, they're still late in the evening, either India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and South Asia. So it's already late in the evening, and you have been waiting for this long webinar. So thank you for your patience. And I would very quickly run through what Roland has beautifully already expressed, the focus of my presentation on this special occasion of the World Environment Day. Let me share my screen. I have a few pictures and some snippets that I might touch upon. So allow me to share my screen. Okay, I hope the transition will take place well. So I hope you're able to see the screen, is it?
Yes, all fine.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
yes, it's fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So as Roland mentioned, the focus is on water, and that's something like I must say the missing link in climate, land, and food security. And by profession, I'm working around all this nexus approach on land, water, and food with a justice and human rights perspective. And therefore, I would like to lift up how water is just like a garland that passes through climate, land, food, energy too, of course, and how water connects. And very interestingly, like I observed in these 3 events that Roland mentioned, UN-led events, the government-led events, water was key. And I'm, as a primarily water person, I was delighted to be part of this. Obviously, this year's theme is around climate action, and I think that's very important. I am just coming from a half-a-day event here in Geneva at the Environment House, where we know that Azerbaijan is officially hosting the World Environment Day today. And in Geneva, we had the different missions including from Azerbaijan, but also other governments. They made a half-a-day presentation, and water came again here very strongly. I wanted to now just engage the participants who are probably getting a little bored now by this familiar photo. 1972, Apollo 17 took the top picture of planet Earth from the space. And this year, Artemis 2 took the picture below. There's obviously not much difference, just that the globe is rotating and the pictures look a little different, but then nothing much. And come to think of it, this is a 50 years difference between these two photographs. But obviously, in the larger scheme of things, 50 years is nothing, because the planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And the human beings, we came in the picture just around 300,000 years, giving it the higher margin of the Homo sapiens that appeared. But if you talk about this human civilization, that's probably about 6,000 years only old, right? 4.5 billion years, if you compress it to, let's say, 24 hours, and humans appeared, that is 300,000 years ago. In this 24 hours, human came in the last second, and that is 23 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. And then humans appear, and boom, we have so much of biodiversity loss, pollutions, the triple planetary crisis that we are seeing: pollution, climate change, biodiversity loss, and so on. So this was like on the Earth Day that in April 22nd we observed. I wanted to remind how humans have impacted Mother Earth, because this was the theme this year. Now, there is something called the Earth Overshoot Day, which again, we are aware that we as humans, we have allocated ourselves a budget, like families have a budget to run every month. The Earth Overshoot Day since 1970s is allocating and kind of calculating Earth's resources to be consumed by human beings from January to December. In the early 70s, we were managing it well, January to December, but over the past, say, about 40-50 years now, we can see this, that we are finishing the resources faster and faster and faster. In 2025, we finished it almost in July. And given the wars that's going on now, probably this year it will be already by end of this month or middle of this month, we would finish off the Earth's allocated resources to be consumed by human beings. And at this rate, obviously, we would need about 1.8 Earth, and we only have 1. So anyway, with that little fun fact, I wanted to bring in today's main topic, and that is obviously Roland has already mentioned, and therefore I would not go on reading it again, but how these 3 important UN events started with the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture that happens annually in Berlin, Germany, that was a very strong focus on water and agriculture there. And then later in January in Dakar in Senegal, we had the UN Water Conference high-level preparatory meeting. And the following month in February, we had ICARD, the International Conference on Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, that happened 20 years later. The first one was 2006 in Porto Alegre, Brazil. And all these, the common thread I saw was water. So there are some pictures here. On the left, you have the ministry from Senegal, environment and the water sanitation department from Senegal. The minister was there in Berlin. And on the right, we have a new face here, that is Retno Marsoudi. She is the newly appointed water envoy, and she was also there in GFFA. Unlike others, as some of you were talking before, the speakers were saying, we have different mechanisms around different topics relates to climate, food, and etc. Water is all over the place. We do not have a single body intergovernmental mechanism that monitors water. And Retno Marsoudi, therefore, is kind of appointed by the UN Secretary General, and thereby she is kind of a supervisor to all the different teams of water. So I also wanted to therefore update all of us what were some of the key outcomes vis-a-vis water in these three forums. So the Global Forum on Food and Agriculture came up with a communique that was some 60 agriculture ministers from different countries signed and brought forward that agriculture is a key solution to global water crisis. It is interesting because 70% of fresh water is used for water for agriculture and food production, and 1/3 of the food gets wasted, and thereby 1/3 of that water also gets wasted. You and I, Blue Community, and all those we talk about is only for 10% of the water that we as humans consume, and nobody talks about the 70%, not much at least. And also 20% for the industries. Thanks to the AI data centers, the percentage may even grow more. Thankfully, some of us, we pushed in the GFFA the right to water concept and the human rights. And then Pedro sent a video message to us, and at least Pedro Arroyo, I'm talking about the UN Special Rapporteur on Right to Water. And the third one was the Global Dialogue on Water Tenure. I'm currently one of the members of the Water Tenure Expert Group of the FAO, and we did organize a side event there and pushed that like the land tenure, forest, and fisheries, we should have one on the water tenure as well. I'm quickly moving on to the next one, obviously the ICARD plus 20. And this is where the photograph that you're seeing, this was organized around the water tenure that I was talking about by the FAO, by several members who spoke about it, because it is important to recognize the customary rights of the communities when we talk about water rights within the tenure. We all talk about the VGGT guidelines, that is the voluntary guidelines of governance and tenure. That was a result of the first ICARD conference, actually. And this ICARD in Colombia, 20 years later, we pushed towards the another similar to the VGGT guidelines, which doesn't include water, and we want water tenure also to be recognized. One of the key outcomes has been the declaration that firmly again placed agrarian reform and equitable land governance and at the center of the global development and climate agenda. And we must try that at least during this, by the water conference in Abu Dhabi in December, hopefully we have a water tenure in place. Also, these were these 4 arcs frameworks: recognition, redistribution, restitution, and regulation. These were the key takeaways, especially that the civil society and the indigenous peoples movement pushed the governments to do that, and especially the indigenous peoples rejected the outcome because they were not enough mentioned in the outcome. As a faith-based organization, we too we released a very strongly worded statement demanding human rights to land. So we talk about right to land, but we also talk about right of land in the context of the Christian belief of Jubilee. That means once every 25 years, we must cancel debts, give rest to the land so that it restores and rejuvenates, and so on. Oh, and then these are something I wanted to also speak about, the preparatory meeting of the UN high-level prep meeting. There are 6 interactive dialogues: water for people, water for planet, water for prosperity, and so on. So I was a co-facilitator with the UN Wetlands Secretary General and myself. We were the co-facilitator. Japan and Egypt, 2 governments, hosted this interactive dialogue number 3 on water for planet. In the interest of time, I wanted to very quickly maybe list some of these: finance gap, climate resiliency, weak transboundary cooperation, WASH infrastructure gap, the triple planetary crisis, and so on. These were some of the challenges that we raised. And some of the recognition was what we need when we talk of water and for planet is increased integration. At least this year, for example, we have 3 Rio Convention birthed COPs. We only talk of climate COP, but we also need to talk about the other 2 COPs, that is the UN CCD, UN CBD COPs. The combating desertification COP is the land COP, or the biodiversity COP. All 3 are taking place this year because they happen every 2 years. Yes, the resiliency and adoption, then the regeneration and restoration, where a lot of focus also has been given to the wetlands ecosystems, because we're increasingly now seeing them getting impacted or vanishing. Okay, in the interest of time, because I think about 2 more minutes left, these are some of the very key recommendations. Water is political, water is life, Water for Planet is the engine on the interactive dialogue, Water for Prosperity. When we talk of WASH, let's also talk about ecosystem, and therefore it is WASH E, maybe we can promote when we talk about WASH, for example. And the human rights language also needed to be brought into the almost all the interactive dialogues. I'm not sure if you have heard of this one or received a communication from the UN Special Rapporteur Pedro Arroyo. He has now reviewed all the 6 interactive dialogues within a human rights lens. If you have not, I'll share it with Roland, and maybe this can be shared with everyone, because unfortunately within the water sector, human rights is often neglected and not given any prominence. The big meetings of the UN Water Conference seldom invite the Special Rapporteur on Human Right to Water, for example, or the infamous World Water Forum that is organized by the corporates. They also do not invite the human rights concept. So that I may share that with you. And I think these are some of these things I wanted to share. And then these are the Living Planet Monitor that Roland was talking about. I basically, as the editor, edit and publish this from the World Council of Churches, when we focus on land, water, and food systems in a continent, and then we review it and juxtapose it with the good practices by communities, especially faith communities. So this was focused on South and East Africa. Then we had the rest of Africa, volume 2, and the volume 3 is on South Asia. I see a lot of friends from India and the other parts of South Asia. We do Google it, the Living Planet Monitor, and you can download and use. From the climate, the World Council of Churches also has launched a decade of action, climate justice action, from last year. So for the next 10 years, we would be deeply involved and engaged in climate justice aspect, and using, for example, this is a new thing, children to sue the governments and the fossil fuel companies. So today in the Financial Times, there is an article that has come. The Methodist Church has sued HDFC Bank for supporting fossil fuel based initiatives. And the children have taken them to the ICJ, International Court of Justice. You may Google also Hope for Children through Climate Justice of the WCC. So my 15 minutes is up. I would stop here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. But thank you so much for your patience. And thanks, Roland.
Thank you, Dinesh. That was a great load of information, of impressions. Thank you very much for sharing with us. I would suggest, because we're already over the 90 minutes that a webinar should usually last, my suggestion is all those who want should stay and discuss as long as you want. But first, before that, I would like, in a formal way, basically maybe to conclude our today's webinar on the World Environment Day. I drop you in the chat and information where you can find upcoming events and other news look at the blue community side. And Dinesh gave us a bit of a hope, which sometimes it's difficult to find. Maude started with it already. In a world that is so full of challenges, of problems, of wars and whatever, it's sometimes hard to keep going and to keep struggling. But I think what you showed us, Dinesh, and what the blue community tries to do is to show that there is a way forward, that we can do something, not just to despair or to wait for others, the big politicians, the big governments to do something, but every organization, every institution, everywhere can become a blue community and can make a difference. So as Maude always say, Maude, you can second me on that, let us turn the world blue, let us make a difference there where we can, and not just talk about and despair about all the challenges. So that would be the big message, maybe the takeaway from the whole conference today for the World Environment Day, to say water is an important part of this environment. It makes the planet blue, it keeps us alive, and we should protect it for that. Aniruddha, you have some final remarks, and afterwards I would say for all those who have questions and want to discuss, stay with us as long as you feel like.
Yeah, thank you, Ronald. Actually, I am down with fever and all such things because I have traveled to a actually to Ladakh. What is difficult for you to understand? Maybe it is a glacier based area. So from there, I have come right away to 34 degrees Celsius temperature, where it was minus. So because of that, I have some problems. Okay, fine. Everything I have listened, I was very careful in listening to all these presenters, but I must say something that you have said so many things about the problems. There are problems, we know, but what are the solutions? And solutions should be from within. Solutions cannot be high tech because all high-tech solutions are not culturally appropriate. So this culturally appropriate thing, when you are talking about community should be at the center. So we need to think about it, that what community understands. So localization is a very big thing. So in their language, we need to translate. We need to just mm, uh, change our slides to their language, as well as to discuss with them what are the solutions they feel. And it is a right for everyone. It's a basic human right. And what we all are feeling, that this basic human right, so it is by demanding to the government, it will not be fulfilled, never be fulfilled. So we have to think of some solutions, and I believe those solutions are there. So very reasonable solutions, like you are talking about. I'm not taking much time. Like we are talking about shelters. So we are putting the sanitary pit or the uh, pit for defecation. So it is underground. So when this area is flooded, so that thing will contaminate definitely, and it will not contaminate the area, it will contaminate the agriculture, it will contaminate everything. So it will be so polluted so that people cannot go out of their home. So we need to think of it, but there are simple solutions. And because we are talking about sanitation and open defecation and all these things we are talking, that's fine. But there is a simple solution, that it is not harpic, not any muriatic acid can solve your problems, but understanding that there are good bacteria as well as there are bad bacteria. So good bacteria, if you kill by putting by using acid or harpic or anything, so it will be the defecation open defecations has no but no way you can solve the problem. So rather, we need to think, we need to understand that how to prevent those things, how to prevent those things like the good bacteria, those who are killing the germs, so they should not be damaged. Number two is no one has said about menstrual hygiene management. I believe that menstrual hygiene management is a very, very important issue. And mm, if our women, those who are menstruating, and if they do not get the support, they do not know how to uh, solve the problem. And what is menstrual hygiene management? It is for menstrual hygiene management, we are talking about sanitary napkins or anything absorbents, any absorbents. So these are only 2 to 5% of the whole component. But menstrual hygiene management means it's care, it's food, it's at that time the level of rest, that time the tamping, the pain, feeling of pain, and all these things. So that uh, should be considered. So I would like to end here with thanks from Prism and Carnegie, Climate Action Resource Network Asia Pacific. I know that Roland is there to give a vote of thanks from Blue Community. So we decided that three of the organizers, we have decided that to collaborate, and this is the right time. So World Environment Day is the right time, right date for escalating this issue. And I would like to thank all of you, all the presenters, all the participants, those who are present till now. And over to Roland.
Thank you, Aniruddha, and be aware when you have temperature, water is important. Dehydration is terrible, so make sure to drink enough. Thank you also from the side of the Blue community, from my side, to all the presenters. Thank you for all of the participants for being with us. I will not stop the recording. I will not stop the chat here. So those who feel like staying, having a question, having a comment, some of the presenters, some of the participants, feel free to do so, but also please feel free to switch off. It's time after more than 90 minutes. It's almost 2 hours already. So it's your decision. You can stay for a moment longer if you want, but also feel free to leave the room, and hope to see you soon again at any next event we are organizing. Is somebody asking for the floor with a question or with a last comment, with a last remark? It seems.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
I'm from India. Me, Professor D. Dottorai from Indian Statistical Institute. This is my observation because I have done one research related to the pro-environmental attitude. To what extent related to the pro-environmental behavior. So this part is very much related to your blue community. And I have noted that there is no very good relation between the pro-environmental attitude and the pro-environmental behavior. So this is my observation. I'm just sharing. And I know Aniruddha Babu is in Prism. Once upon a time, I did research with him also related to some other issues. I'm very much happy that is today I have learned many things from the blue community, and very nice contribution by several professors who have contributed many things related to the water issue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madhukar, for your comment. Any more questions or feedback?
I just wanted to ask a question, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I heard almost all the presenters, and specifically coming into the question from Dr. Aniruddha Day about everybody's talking about the problem, so nobody's talking about the solution, right? So just wanted to focus my approach of solution and to present it to the august audience here and all the presenters. What we do as our intervention is we take this approach that water bodies are conjunction point of soil, water, and air. And between these three layers, there is a consistent exchange which is happening. If the water bodies are healthy, there will be soil capillaries which will be linking the surface water body to the underground aquifer, which means it will ensure groundwater recharge and that will eradicate the groundwater depletion, right? So every water body in a healthy condition is essentially a groundwater recharge and a groundwater correction apparatus that exists naturally. See, nature would have created landlocked water bodies for a purpose. When these landlocked water bodies were created, that time also 73% of the globe was as it is water, right? We had all the oceans even before the land surface, the terrestrial surface emerged out of the oceans, right? So nature has created the landlocked water bodies for the purpose of providing ecosystem services to the terrestrial ecology, to the terrestrial ecosystem. And these services are groundwater recharge, flood mitigation, waterlogging mitigation, drought mitigation, air pollution mitigation, removal of the legacy greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, ensuring the biodiversity conservation, oxygenating the air around the water body, right? So why don't we actually focus on restoration of the health of the water bodies so that all these problems that we call, now we call it global warming, but the global warming will start from local warming first. The local areas will get warmed up and then all those local areas put together will cause the global warming. So the biggest tool or the biggest compact mechanism that nature has given us to fight climate change and global warming are our water bodies, are our water structures, the natural water structures. Why are we trying to clean them? There is a natural digestion mechanism that exists. See, nature doesn't have any concept of waste or wealth. Both of them are man-made. We attach an imaginary value to something and we call it a wealth. We detach that value and we call it a waste. So nature, everything moves in a cycle. There is no waste in nature. All we need to do is we need to put what we call as waste in the right place and the problem will be sorted out. So if we just focus on restoration of the health of the water bodies instead of the physical visual effect of beautification or physically cleaning of water, in which the business will be sustainable, water bodies will not, right? So if we just focus on restoration of the health of the water bodies to restore the ecosystem services from them to their respective vicinities, I guess all the problem will be sorted. And I would like to invite everybody's comment on my approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhukar. Any reaction on this or any other comments, questions?
Hello, sir. It is, in fact, this session has been eye-opener in many ways, and this the problem is very complex. Water and sanitation issue these days. It coupled with this climate change impacts and water scarcity, and the groundwater, the surface water pollution, and the people's the exploitation of the natural resources. All these are get more, becoming more and more complexities. So we have to start at the grassroots level, the awareness creation. This is only a tip of an iceberg. We are touching it. There are issues are much more than what has been said by Madam Lyla, and this is everywhere, not only in India and other places also. I was previously engaged by Lutheran World Federation, Geneva, and we have done a lot of drought mitigation programs in West Bengal and many parts in India. So there are, sincerely, if you want to find solution, we have to have more and more talk and awareness creation activities. The same, so that's what I think one of the steps we need to take now. Thank you for organizing such an important issue, bringing out issues worldwide. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment and for your feedback. Anybody more to take the floor and come up? Yes, please. Sheikh Tawhidul,
yeah,
I think you wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from China basically. There is some kind of VPN issue. That's why I just thought that it's better to just record my presentation and share with you all. But it didn't work very well. I also didn't just able to see the slides at my end. But this is a very good discussion. I would like to thank to all the presenters, especially Dr. Gonzalo from Peru. I requested him to just participate in this particular webinar. He agreed, and also Professor Yonariza. So these two professors, they came to respond to our call, and all other professors, Professor Lyla Mehta, Dennis Suna, and also Maude Barlow. She is really a big person in this particular Blue community. She is the founder, and also you, Ronald, you are the champion, and also Dr. Aniruddha. So that was it is really a good thing to be with you. So this particular webinar, and there are several other aspects and the occasions that we had been together in organizing this particular webinar. So the problem is very complicated, and it is there is no easy solution. There are so many, this is the 53rd World Environment Day, and we have been talking about these issues for the last 52 years at least. But the problems are much worse compared to the past. So maybe we could just start doing something at the local level, but we also need to know. We also need to just focus on the regional issues, the global issues. Those are connected to local aspects. So acting, working together will maybe just help us to understand the problems better. That will lead us to solve some of the problems. But it is very complicated. But thank you so much. I'm very happy to be to get connected with you all with this note. Saying thank you. That I basically felt a bit sorry that the presentation was not that much accessed by all the people who were present in the sessions. So thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Sheikh Tawhidul. I think it was some very nice and kind last words for our meeting. We already passed 2 hours now in our webinar. If there is no urgent need for one more vote and for one more some words, then I would conclude the session here. Again, with all the best thanks to all the presenters, to all the participants. Yes, please.
Sir Roland, one just personal question. Is which part of Canada the Blue community is? I'm planning to be in Toronto, Canada. Maybe next month.
Okay, let's talk about that in on the separate channel. We will see what we can organize
Yes.
there. Okay.
Yes.
So again,
Right.
thank you
Right.
everybody. Thank you, Maude, from the very beginning till Dinesh at the very end, and all those in between for your presentations. All those who were listening, participating, and let us stay in contact. Let us continue, even if the problems are big, even if the situation is complicated. There is a simple solution: move, turn blue, do something. Doing nothing is not a remedy. Thank you very much for being with us, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of this World Environment Day, and hope to see you soon again. Goodbye, everybody.
You goodbye.
Fernando González? Gonzalo? Ya se fue.
Yes, here.
Hello.
¿Ya?
No, here I am.
Estaba usted que estaba preguntando por Canadá.
Canada. No, yo no
No?
fui. I was not the one.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, then. Aniruddha, we close the
Habla
session. Is that
español.
okay? Sí, lo hablo, sí.
Thank you, Roland. Very nicely organized and very nicely presented by the presenters. So I am thankful to all of them, all the presenters as well as the participants.
We will stay in touch. Thank you.
All the
Dinesh
best.
also. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.